How do we help victims of sexual abuse? In this article, we take a closer look at how we help victims of sexual abuse. Some tragic cases shed light on a reality that we had forgotten all about for a while: how difficult it is for society to understand victims of sexual abuse. It's an example of what tends to happen in society. People blame the victim and question their side of the story as they try to get their lives back on track. The reality is that sexual abuse is something that stays with the victim. It's not just a moment in life. The abused person has to live with it for the rest of their life. I wish I could tell my sister that she's not dirty and that she shouldn't feel ashamed of something that she's literally not responsible for. Viola David. What factors influence the recovery of our victims of sexual abuse? First of all, it is important that victims work on an aspect that significantly affects their psychological distress, their constant sense of guilt. When you have experienced such a trauma, it is quite common to think badly of yourself. Victims of sexual abuse often do this, which just makes it much more likely to suffer from PTSD and depression. When we watch various cases of sexual abuse on TV, we often realize how much people question the victims. Many people ask them questions such as, "But did you say no?" Or "Did you really try to speak up?" When people cast doubt on what has happened, it reinforces the victim's attachment to their negative beliefs. Stop blaming the victims. You are the reason so many survivors live in fear. Ali Raisman. Something that is very important for victims of sexual abuse is social and emotional support. However, it is important to remember that support is not enough if the person cannot see it. The victim needs to know that there are people out there who are ready to help so that they can restore their well-being. Coping strategies and adaptive emotional regulation are extremely important. How can victims of sexual abuse work towards better well-being? First of all, it is important to use cognitive restructuring techniques to change all beliefs that victims of sexual abuse have about themselves, as well as their feelings of guilt. In this sense, they must learn how to modify the negative ideas and thoughts that tell them that they deserve what happened. We need to send a clear message around the world that there is no shame in being a survivor of sexual violence. It is the perpetrator who bears all the blame. Angelina Jolie. Unfortunately, it is not easy to get rid of those thoughts as the victim is basically used to them by now. The victim must implement strategies that are focused on the problem, that are usually adaptive to other situations. However, in the case of abuse, it is best to use those that focus on emotions, since abuse is an event that victims cannot control. It is also important to mention social support and the way victims of sexual abuse perceive it. Sometimes when someone close to us goes through a traumatic experience, we feel the need to help them, but we don't know how. We consistently offer our help and support, but it may not be in the way that the victim needs it. Conclusion. Sometimes we feel frustrated when we try to help someone and we don't get the best results. Having said that, it is important that we are aware of our limits. We have to be aware that there are some things that we just can't handle. Thus, it is best to leave it to the professionals, psychologists and psychiatrists. Ultimately, they are the ones who will be in the best position to help the victim. However, this does not mean that we should not be there for the person. We just have to ask ourselves if we are doing it right. I am not what has happened to me. I am what I choose to be. Carl Jung,